Hello and greetings, everyone. This is Ayya Phalanyani speaking from Germany, from Anenja Vihara. Before we start, I would like to breathe a little bit. For some minutes, we try to relax and to just breathe. Breathing in and breathing out softly, gently, with goodwill in our hearts. Just breathing in and out and relaxing the belly, relaxing the abdomen so that the column vertebral, some muscles and some sinews are all that work and keep the body upright, but all the intestines and everything just is relaxed and receives a massage by the breath going in and out. And we relax the shoulders, we don't need to carry the world on our shoulders. We don't need to carry that heavy load. And finally, we relax our face. Most of all, the forehead and the chin. And thus, totally relaxed, totally in the present moment, ready to talk about the Dhamma or ready to listen to the Dhamma. I greet you all. Many blessings for your New Year's. Wherever you have celebrated, I hope it started good for you and it will continue good, and it will be a year full of blessings, full of love that is within your heart and all around you. And same with peace. May that be within your heart and all around you. And the Dhamma. May there always be Dhamma where you are. May you have the strength and the opportunity to live by the Dhamma. and to be protected by the Dhamma. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Yes, so um, last Wednesday talk was about what we tried to practice over the New Year's. We always do a New Year's retreat. That's kind of a tradition, although I'm only here since 2018, although the monastery exists much longer than that. I took over the lead here in the monastery only 4.5 years ago, so it's not so long, but it already has become a tradition. It already has become a tradition to have a New Year's retreat. And for me, this is the most beautiful time of the year because it's in total silence. And that's so wonderful. Yeah. And it's also boosting kind of the practice, that keeping silence. Because really, when the mind becomes still, when your mouth becomes still, slowly everything calms down, and finally the thoughts slow down, feelings slow down, and everything just slows down and becomes silent. So, but this time we continue, as you may have read in the announcement, we continue with Digha Nikaya 34, our long sutta, and we are with the groups of 5. The groups of 5, you remember, there are groups put in together into groups by Sariputta, and those groups of 1, 2, 3, 4 up to 10 have always the same set of questions. I'm going to read the set of questions again so that we remember what it's all about, because it has been a while, no? So I try to put it correctly because we are with the 5. I try to put it as it should be. There are friends, 5 things that greatly help. 5 things to be developed. 5 things to be thoroughly known. 5 things to be abandoned. 5 things that conduce to diminution. 5 things that conduce to distinction. 5 things are hard to penetrate. 5 things to be made to arise. 5 things to be thoroughly learned. And 5 things to be realized. And right, Jayanta. Good morning, good evening, good whatever wherever you are. So we're going through the things. First of all, what greatly helps. Let me just open the file so that I can read it to you briefly, and then we talk about it. The groups of 5. So what are the 5 things that greatly help? That are 5 factors that support meditation. When someone, I don't translate bhikkhu here, but just say someone, because it's of course not only bhikkhus, but that is also true for you living the household life. It might be a little bit more difficult to practice all these things in the household life, but nonetheless, if you want to experience the total freedom from suffering, you have to do. So I don't say a bhikkhu needs or a bhikkhuni, but a person. A person has faith, saddha, in the realized ones, in the blessed ones, awakening. And that is what we usually chant. Iti piso bhagava arahan samma sambuddho, and so forth. So that blessed one is perfected, a fully awakened Buddha, accomplished in knowledge and conduct, holy, knower of the world, supreme guide for those who wish to train, teacher of gods and humans, awakened, blessed. So this is the first of 5 factors that support our meditation. That is, we have that faith. We don't need to think now, was the Buddha really enlightened? Or is something else, is what the yoga tradition calls enlightenment, is more enlightened than the Buddha was? Or is it maybe some scientific evidence that, or is it the native tribal of any country, whatever? We have faith that it is the Buddha, that he has found the true awakening, the true liberation from suffering. So trusting that, not believing, just having some faith in it. Saddha. That is a support for our meditation. Then the next one, I can tell that's true. Absolutely. They are rarely ill or unwell. Although I do not have digestive problems presently, since we have an osmosis, whatever thing here. But yeah, other unwellnesses and illnesses are also really, really disturbing. And when I compare the meditation that I could do before Lyme disease and COVID, and now after, still half a year later, I'm still not back to normal meditation practice. It's still so difficult to concentrate and to keep the mind clear. So I can really relate to this one. being ill or unwell really is an obstacle for meditation practice. So being healthy, being really ill or unwell, is a great support for our meditation. Nonetheless, when we are ill or unwell, we shouldn't stop practicing. That doesn't say that, right? Third thing of the 5 things that support meditation, they are not devious. So that means they are not cheaters. Meditation doesn't need cheating. You do it or you don't. And not deceitful. So if you pretend to have some meditative attainment, or if you have something that you experienced or so, in every retreat there is someone who tries to give the impression to others that, oh, I have so much experience and I am so well trained, and actually doesn't have really some experiences at all, or practice, yes, but nothing deep, so to say. So right, Dan, exactly. Somebody who says, oh, I have so much experience and I'm so well trained. And then I remember my first ever retreat, and in the end we had a round where everybody just talked about their experience, and I was in Japan, and it was in English, and my English wasn't that good at that time, but so I just bowed, and I could sit straight and could sit long. So some people thought, she is experienced. Although I sunbathed in that, I have to say. So when we left, there was the master, and I was passing by with my bag and getting ready to get out. And I wanted to just very holy and silently make a gasho, a Y, so a greeting to say goodbye. And I stumbled and almost fell. So something like that, when you try to be holier than you are, like that, not so good. That doesn't help your practice. Or to pretend that you know more than you do. That doesn't help much. The next thing would be that those factors, one of those factors that support meditation is when one is living with aroused energy. So energy, virya. And this energy is for giving up unskillful qualities and embracing skillful qualities. So this is not just, I'm full of energy, now give me something, but really for the practice, for samavayamo, if you want to say, to give up the unskillful qualities and never let them arise again, for putting in place the skillful, wholesome qualities and cultivate them so that they never go away. That would be the energy that is helpful. The next thing is one is wise, one has panya. And this is a special wisdom that is meant here. It is a wisdom that allows to see and understand the arising and passing away. That is a noble wisdom. That is a penetrative wisdom, a wisdom that sees through, that sees the things as they really are, and in the end can lead to the complete ending of suffering. You know, we all have some panya, some wisdom, but it is particularly this kind of wisdom. And the arising and passing away is happening every single moment, again and again, always. And these last two, virya and panya, we have talked about. You know, we have talked about them last week, actually, because they are both in the list of the 10 paramis. So if you remember, that is good. Because, yeah, they are among the 5 things that support meditation. The next in line is what 5 things should be developed. And that is right absorption or right immersion with 5 factors. I'm not too happy with that translation, but what is meant here actually is sama samadhi. So right immersion, sama samadhi, and that has 5 factors, 5 things that but I don't have a better translation than right absorption or right concentration with 5 factors. Here in the other translation, it would say 5-fold perfect concentration. And that is being pervaded with rapture. And the next is being pervaded with pleasure. So that in Pali, if we translate this has piti and sukha. And that is fairly easy when we have piti and sukha in regards to samadhi. We can be sure this is the first jhana. And then maybe we have only one of those, namely only sukha left in the second. So these two can relate to nothing else but to the first 2 jhanas. Pervaded with the mind. that is somewhat more difficult. What could that mean? Even the translator, the different translators are really not too sure. It must have something to do with the things that we experience when we are in concentration. Here in our other translation, the first two would be suffusion with delight, and the second, suffusion with happiness, so that piti and sukha. And here, Bhante Sujato says pervaded with mind. And here in the other translation, it says suffusion with will. Both in this regard is Cheto. Cheto. Chitta is another word which is not used here, but Cheto. And it is about the mind, of course. And one would be suffused with, the mind would become still and clear. That would be then the third jhana. But even the Pali rendering here is somewhat not the common phrasing in other suttas. So really, it is not too sure what is meant here. Pervaded with the light is Bhikkhu Sujato's next translation, whereas suffusion with light. The Pali word is aloka paharana, and cheto paharana. So this is paharana, is that which is being suffused or pervaded. And I could imagine that what is meant here, that is not it, one is pervaded with the mind, but the mind is totally pervaded, is suffused, is kind of really deep into it. There is not much possible except that which is in the mind. And aloka paharana is not outwardly, it's with a long A, which can mean light. It also can be rendered as sight. Some say it could mean with insights. Some say it could be that you have nimittas and see light. And some say it could be that it is a state of being where you just feel very light. There is not much burden. There is not much heaviness. And I would say all of these things could actually happen in the jhanas. If you get deep enough, you can see lights. You can feel lightweight, and you can have sights of lights and colors or pictures or visions or something. So I leave it up to you to decide and to practice for yourself. And a fifth thing in this row would be Pachavekana Nimitang. So a sign that we can review. And that is something that when we are in deep meditative states, we come out, we know that we're out, and we can reflect upon that. We know when we are going in, and we know when we are coming out, but that occurs later again. So we have a foundation for that. We understand that. This is what is important here. Somehow my Dan is asking questions. I'm trying to to get this away. So Dan Jones, right immersion. I think Ajahn Brahms goes right stillness. Yes, Ajahn Brahm translates samadhi with stillness, but the word for stillness is actually pasadhi. So right focus, right concentration, right yeah, you can select what fits better for you. The point is that it shall lead to stillness. That is what it's all about. Okay. Dan writes, I have answered his topics, his questions already. Then we just continue because it's getting longer and longer here. What 5 things should be completely understood? Or which 5 things are to be thoroughly known? However we take it, it's the 5 grasping aggregates. You know that word for sure. The Panchupadana Khandha. And that is, we cling for the form. Rupupadana Khandho. We cling to the feeling. Vedana, Vedanupadana Khandho. Perceptions. Sanyupadana Khandho. Because Sujato translates it as choices. Possible. I think commonly, more often, it's translated as mental formations. That would be Sankharupadana Khandho, and as last Vinyanupadana Khandho, that would be the consciousness. And when the Buddha talks about them, he distinguishes the 5 things where we cling to, and those, they are just the khandhas. And then there are those who we to which we are clinging to, of which we think, this is mine, this is myself. And we see a form and we think, my form. For example, my cup of tea. I shall take a sip. And it's not that we shall only understand the form. We shall only also understand the way of clinging to forms, what we do with forms, that we do exactly this clinging, craving, and making it I, me, mine, and myself. And my feelings are hurt, or my feelings are important. And yeah, I have seen this in this way. My perception is important. It's just a perception. It's just a feeling. It's just a form. But as long as we cannot see a form as a form, a feeling as a feeling, a perception as a perception, the sankharas as the sankharas, and vijnana as vijnana, as long as we are attached to these things and make up things, so build up a pile, a huge amount of more sankharas about it. As long as that is so, we call them grasping aggregates. And all of them, if we are honest with ourselves, we must say, yes, I take my personal feelings more important than another person's feelings. When somebody gets upset because I was saying something because somebody else said something to me, then I want to get rid of my feelings and give it to somebody else. So of course I think, yes, my feeling is more important, or I know better, I know well about feelings or about forms and so on. So not only, to say that again, not only form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness needs to be understood, completely understood, but also the aspect of how we crave for them, how we grasp them, and what we are doing to them. And then, as I see now, Sud has something to say for or ask to the former group of fives, the Ayya, I feel light with every meditation session and I feel joy. Sometimes I see light. I'm not sure if that's jhana since it's not very impressive, or thinking jhanas would be more impressive. Well, there are very beautiful states of being calm and being in meditation, but not being in a jhana yet, but not being in a real absorption, but really so still and so calm that it is joyful and it is um, yeah, making you feel light. And I think we should not expect something of the jhanas. You know, states of being don't need to be very impressive. I mean, real piti, if you look at what this can really mean, then it is those moments when you are so touched and so moved by the joy that you get goosebumps, or you have tears of joy because it's so deep. And to see the light can be overwhelmingly joyful. And you can feel really, really feather light, like almost you would lift up, like you think you levitate. Mm. And of course, that can be impressive, but it does not need to be impressive. Being impressive is our judgment about it. If we look at the things as they are, then we are just sitting in an absorption, which is neither impressive nor not impressive, which is just an absorption, the first, second, third, or fourth, say. And since I'm not your teacher and we do normally don't talk about these things, I just can't say whether what you experience are jhanas or not. I would need to know more and understand more about your practice and about how you go in, what happens when you go in, what happens when you go out, and so on. But as I said in the beginning, there can be very, very pleasant abidings without it being jhanas. Or you can be in a jhana and it's just not impressive because you're so deep in it and you're so advanced, say, in your understanding that you just know, well, it's neither impressive nor it's not impressive. Right. What do we have next? What should be given up? The 5 hindrances, the nivarana. That is sensual desire, ill will, dullness and drowsiness, restlessness and remorse, and doubt. I don't think that I need to say much more about that because we have talked about this and this is so very common. If you have a question about it, it could also be an entire talk about that. We already had a full retreat about the hindrances. But for now, I think you understand that these things, these 5 things, will ruin your meditation practice. If you have any of those 5 hindrances, I repeat, sensual desire, ill will, dullness and drowsiness, restlessness and remorse, or doubt, then that is the ruin of your of your meditative practice. And you will not, while these are there within your mind and heart, become enlightened ever. So you need, at least for moments, at least for some time, you would need to let go of these. Okay, what 5 things make things worse? And that these are 5 kinds of emotional blockages. And I think we all know them. Blockages or barrenness, emotional barrenness, chetohila. And as in the beginning of the groups of 5s, when you have doubts about the teacher. So if you think, whoa, I'm not too sure that guy was enlightened. The thing is, if you doubt that he is the absolute best teacher you can ever get, you will look for other teachers. And the more you look for other teachers, the more you will get distracted. And the more you get distracted with other teachings, the more your mind muddles up. And then you become uncertain and undecided, and you're lacking confidence in the Buddha. And when that is so, your mind just doesn't incline to the practice, to the commitment to the practice. And you just can't follow up with what you need to follow up. To be aware, sharp in mind, to have clear vision and awareness and these things. And then you have doubts about the teaching. You have doubts about the Sangha. You have doubts about the training. So if, for example, you got this thus far that you have faith in the Buddha, but you say, yeah, but the training, you look, those 311 rules for bhikkhunis, or those 227 rules for monks, or those 8 for lay people, or any these 5 precepts, this is so old-fashioned. Why can't we just skip this and that rule? If you start like that, you won't get anywhere. So if you have doubts that the training is the right way, if you have doubts that the Sangha can be of great support for your practice, then you don't have enough sati, sampajanya, and just not enough keenness to go for it. And the last thing of the group of 5 things that make things worse is, one is angry and upset with their bhikkhuni, with their spiritual companions, resentful and closed off. And this is very important. This is so common that people are angry and upset with their spiritual companions, and always think, they are doing this bad and that bad, and I'm doing this better. and they always do whatever it is, and they always find fault with their companions, with their companion meditators, and they try to close themselves off and want to be alone, and don't let the group, so the sangha, make them the polished jewel that they are. They keep their sharp edges. So these are the 5 kinds of emotional blockages, barrenness. What 5 kinds lead to distinction? The 5 faculties. And that these are in this case, the indriyas, panchindriyani, faith, energy, mindfulness, immersion or absorption, and wisdom. Satindriyam, virindriyam, satindriyam, samadhindriyam, panyindriyam. These are very famous also, are almost all of them are already mentioned in other groups of 5. And if you really pick them up and practice them, make sure you have the right faith, not too much faith, not blind faith, but just enough to say, okay, I'll try and see for myself, and enough effort really to go for it, enough awareness and enough focus and enough wisdom, then you really can see through things. Then you see through the curtain that is blinding, kind of shunning your view, that is making your view to liberation obstructed. What 5 things are hard to comprehend? Five elements connected with deliverance. Here I would again check with the other translation. Now that I'm not again mixing up I think, yes, here. Which 5 things are to be made to arise? The 5-fold knowledge of the right concentration. And that is a mendicant focuses on sensual pleasures, karma. But their mind isn't eager, confident, and decided about them. But when they focus on renunciation, which is nekama, their mind is eager, confident, settled, and decided about it. Their mind is in a good state, well developed, well risen, well freed, well detached from sensual pleasures. They are freed from distressing and feverish defilements that arise because of sensual pleasures, so that they don't experience that kind of feeling. This is how the escape from sensual pleasure is explained. So we remember these things are hard to look through. They are hard to understand, hard to comprehend. But these are 5 things that are connected with our emancipation, with our freedom from suffering in the end. So usually we focus on sensual pleasures, and then we just get caught in them and we follow after, and we see something nice, or we smell something nice, or hear something nice, and we want more. We follow the sensual pleasures, and it is hard to understand not to do that. And this can even go further. It's not only that somebody sees a sensual pleasure, but they are not only not going there, but they are more happy, they're happier to focus on the renunciation of that. So, say I see a cake on our lunch buffet, and instead of thinking, whoa, what a great cake that is, I want maybe 2 pieces, I would start to say, well, cake, doesn't need to. Sugar is no good for me. All the other things, when I live without this cake, I live actually easier. I live happier. And I would understand that. It's not that I really do. if there happens to be cake, I commonly want it. So, but this is really, there is a temptation, a sense pleasure. And it's not only that we are not going for it, but we're rather inclined to nekama, into the letting go. That state of mind is really advanced and really close to deliverance, connected with deliverance. So the next thing would be ill will, vyapada. And instead of going into ill will, goodwill, avyapada, is more appealing. And somebody beats you, and whereas the normal person would try to maybe give something back and want to have some sort of revenge, there would be a person that says, well, good. I'm just wishing them luck, and may nobody ever harm them, so that they in future may leave their ill will behind them. And somebody is really more inclined in goodwill. Or next thing, there is the possibility of harming. But when there is harming, one is really The mind is eager and wants to go the good way, and it doesn't want to harm any being. And then there's the case one focuses on rupa, on forms. But that doesn't mean anything to that person. The mind is rather inclined and eager for formlessness, and is more happy about the formless than about the form. And next thing is identity or personality, depending on who translates it. Sakaya, Sakaya Ditti, the view of a self, identity view. So you deal with your identity and you think, oh, I'm this and I'm that, and I'm so sensitive and I'm so brilliant and I'm so whatsoever. But that doesn't mean anything to you. Your mind is only inclined to Sakaya Nirodha, that this self, this identity and the view of identity finally ceases to be. That would be the last one of the groups of this group of 5 of that are hard to comprehend. What 5 things should be produced? Right immersion or right absorption with 5 knowledges. Pancha Jnaniko Samma Samadhi. And these are things that arise within us. There is nobody who could ever tell you. This is something that we experience, that we know for ourselves, or we don't. I would say rather we don't, but I wish for you very, very much that you do. And I include me into that. These are knowledges into the right focus, into the right concentration. This absorption is blissful now and has results in blissfulness. So it's blissful when you are practicing it, and it's blissful afterwards. This immersion or this absorption is noble and spiritual. Here it says this concentration is noble and free from worldliness instead of spiritual. This immersion is not cultivated by sinners. So by experiencing this, you will understand that somebody who has an impure mind would never be able to experience this, because it requires a pure heart and a pure mind to get so deep into samadhi. Or this immersion is peaceful and sublime and tranquil and unified, not held in place by forceful suppression. And this is not here the wording as we know it from when the Buddha talks about the state of it being Nirodha Samapatti. This is peaceful. This is sublime. The wording in Pali is somewhat different, but it means basically the same. And what I find most interesting and needs to be mentioned here, it is not held in place by forceful suppression. You can't get into any meditative states by force. It will happen or it won't, but you can't get there forceful. And finally, I mindfully enter into and emerge from this immersion. This is what I was referring to in the very beginning. I said we come back to this when we know how we enter and how we come out of those states. And this means that one has the capacity of going into those states at will. It's not about, wow, this happened to me, and then we never get it back. This is, you do the work, you have it once, and then you practice. And if necessary, until your bum is bloody or what, I don't know, to a great extent, you practice until you have mastery over it, and you can enter and exit at will. And this is a long paragraph, but I think we can make it short. What 5 things should be directly known? The 5 opportunities for freedom, for release, for emancipation, or yeah. Firstly, the teacher or a respected spiritual companion teaches the Dhamma to a mendicant or to you. So you feel inspired by the meaning and the teaching in that Dhamma, no matter how the teacher or respected spiritual companion teaches it. Feeling inspired, joy springs up. Being joyful, rapture springs up. When the mind is full of rapture, the body becomes tranquil. When the body is tranquil, one feels bliss. And when blissful, the mind becomes immersed. That is the first opportunity of freedom. And that is the same. So it's not a teacher, but the mendicant teaches For example, me. I'm a mendicant teaching to you. And by me teaching, I have insights and feel inspired, which often happens. And that is another opportunity. Then there is no teacher, and you're not teaching yourself, but you're reciting it as you learned and memorized it, and you feel inspired. And then there is no teacher, nobody who teaches the Dhamma. You don't recite the teaching, but you think and consider about the teaching in your heart as you learned and memorized it. And by that, it happens. And then there is no teacher. You don't teach, you don't recite, you don't think about it, but you have a meditation object as a foundation of immersion. And this is properly grasped, attended to, borne in mind, and comprehended with wisdom. And that leads to the whole chain that follows after, that feeling that you get when you hear it or when you practice it inspires you. When you are inspired, joy springs up. When you're joyful, rapture springs up. When the mind is full of rapture, the body becomes tranquil. When the body is tranquil, one feels bliss. When one is blissful, the mind becomes immersed. This is the fifth opportunity for freedom. And what are the 5 things to be realized? Ethics, immersion, wisdom, freedom, and knowledge of the vision and freedom. So again, a roundup, so to say, of everything that we have been talking about before. And with this, I close for today. It's late. I'm sorry. I think it's high time to wrap up. I wish you all the best. The next week or the next 2 weeks, I won't be here. I ask Bante Sudhasu or Ayya Soma to cover up and to give you the teaching or find somebody. So I see you end of January or February. Okay, then. Many blessings.